Hello and welcome back, and that's right, today we're looking at this. Finally it has arrived, the Jonsbo N2, the latest release from arguably one of the darling names in the world of network attached storage enclosures. Cool badge, right? But in today's video, we're just going to be going through what we like about this case and what we don't. We're already in the progress of filming ourselves a great big Jonsbo N2 build to follow up the ones that we've done previously. And just for a heads up on that, that will be utilising that AMD Demon board that we talked about previously here on the channel, that cheeky little AMD number. And we haven't quite decided what software we're going to go within that. We've already done builds on Unraid and TrueNAS. We're thinking about OMV. Let me know in the comments which software you'd like to see in that video. But let's keep our feet on terra firma a bit. Let's carry on with the hardware review. I'll say right now, I like the aesthetic design of it. I think it's got a little bit more of a stylish twang over its previous releases in the N3 and the N2 that came before it. Rocking out the gate at a price tag apparently of £78 at the moment and $93. But both of those also include a hefty delivery charge of around $40 to $50. Depending on where in the world you are getting hold of this, and currently you can only get this case on AliExpress at the moment. Now let's talk about it straight away. That big panel there, I know it sounded metal, don't worry, that was just echoing through the rest of the system. It is a wood panel here on the front. Kind of surprised it's not ventilated at all, but I will say in terms of ventilation, there's an absolute shed ton of ventilation all the way around the front of the case. They've maintained that mesh removable panel there on the front. We've got ventilation there on either side. The top has got that same ventilation panel that the N2 had, and the rear has got plenty of vent panels there. But you've probably already picked up on the fact that there is no room here to attach ourselves an additional active fan on the rear. Indeed, although we have got a single 120mm fan here on the back, there isn't really any room to attach any other fans on this system. It's quite compact there all the way around. Now, in terms of storage media, the storage media on this case, I would argue, is one of the areas where people are less chuffed. When you look back on total storage media, 2.5 inch and 3.5 inch media, the N2 rocked out the gate with 5 hard drive bays and 1 SSD bay. Then the N3 rocked out the gate with 8 hard drive bays and an SSD bay potential inside. I think it might have even been 2. This one has changed the game by rocking out with 4 3.5 inch SATA bays here, 2 more here on this side, and a couple of 2.5 inch SATA there at the bottom. So it sounds good at first, but firstly, you may have already picked up on this, and a lot of early viewers on this picked up on this. These 4 bays here have got a backplane there that's being fed into a SATA SAS board there at the back with the power and the SATA ports on the rear, whereas the other 2 ports are blank. You don't have a backplane, and you'll be directly SATA power interfacing into those individual SSDs, those 2.5 inch SATAs, and a couple of hard drives there. Why is that a problem? That means that side of the system has no hot swapping. Now, great, if one of these drives dies and you don't want to power down the system and go into your RAID rebuild, fine. That side, it's a pain in the arse. And while we're talking about pains in the arse, what are you, a doctor? I want to talk about the drive stuff, because Jonsbo, I love your cases, but as I've said repeatedly in my previous videos, I absolutely detest the way you ingest media into these devices. A little rubber panel that you put here on the top of the drive, and then you directly feed the drive into these, and it's held in place with small rubber grommets, 4 of them on each corner of the drive. Now, I don't like that I have to pull a rubber cord that's got some give to remove a drive from the system. It can result in me pulling the drive and a slight spring back there. Now, sure, maybe the drive I'm removing was damaged anyway, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just showing me some odd sector information and I just wanted to pop it into a docking station. Whatever way I look at it, I don't like these trays. Seriously, Jonsbo, don't go to the effort of making something look nice like this and then go with those sodding trays there. But moving away from that, I will say, as a compact system, it's pretty impressive. You know, supporting both an ITX and M80X motherboard if you choose to. The rear of the system also includes 4 PCIe slots there. They're all half height. That means no PCIe card can be taller than 10.6 centimeters or 106 millimeters. And the same goes for the depth of the case, meaning that in terms of PCIe card installation, the majority of modern GPU or GFX cards are just not going to play ball on this system. You're going to be looking at much shallower height cards, and when it comes to the length of the cards as well. Using our M2 NVMe storage card as an example, this card here, which has got 8 M2 NVMe's, is just simply too long for this case for it to go inside, which is a real shame there, because this system, you know, you would think evolutionary from the N2 to the N3 to the N4 that it would scale up this storage, but for most, you know, reasons, when I look at the specifications of this case, this is like the Jonsbo N2.5 or something. It lives between the two, and I don't know why they didn't scale up to a legitimate 8 or 12 base system with that M80X support. M80X motherboard support is going to be beneficial in order to populate those 4 PCIe slots there, which is great stuff. But we also have to be realistic. Slots like this are really only going to be utilised by network upgrade cards like this dual port 10G NIC, or combo cards like this QNAP 10GBE and 2x M2 NVMe upgrade card. They're available in, you know, Gen 2, Gen 3 and even Gen 4 versions now. Now, that all sounds great, but remember, we've only got these slots to play with. We've only got 6 SATA 3.5 inch bays and 2 SATA 2.5 inch slots there. So the amount of base level storage capability for the 4 slots to really enjoy from your, you know, bigger, beefier M80X motherboard is going to be somewhat limited, and there's a weird conflux of design choices going into it because of that. Because this system, if you're going to go for that beefier MOBO, that also opens up the door to more memory, of course. M80X boards traditionally have a wider degree and larger area to occupy those UDIMM slots for more memory because of those beefier CPUs and the more lanes being afforded to it. But again, when we look at beefier CPUs, we then have to talk about cooling. Because here we are, this is another motherboard here. This is our Ying beast model here. This is the i9 12th Gen Ying. And we went ahead during the build, during our Jonsbo N3 build, to go ahead with the larger piped fan system here. And this CPU cooler is simply not going to fit inside this case. And again, there are going to be users out there watching this video who are going to say, why on earth do you need such a beefy cooler? Well, I'll tell you right now, if you're going M80X and you're going for those bigger, more aggressive cards, then chances are you can have a bigger, more aggressive CPU as well. And you're going to be very reliant on the cooling system on this to keep things going. And frankly, the base level cooling on this, I'm not going to say it's bad, but I think it could be better, because inside there you can see that single 120mm fan that we mentioned earlier on, and that single 120mm fan that we mentioned earlier on is it. You can put that CPU cooler inside, but there isn't really much in the way of upgradability for cooling. This cavity here is occupied by our SFX PSU in there, up to 12.5 centimeters in height, and the cabling, of course, is going to run around the whole case while we're doing it. But unless we mod certain fans into the top of the area, we're really relying a lot here on passive heat dissipation throughout this case. And I just think it's weird they went down the road of going for an M80X case like this, but then clipped wings all the way around the system to maintain a kind of aesthetic quality. Notwithstanding that nice wooden effect in a certain light, actually looks kind of Nordic. And we've got the white version of this device arriving as well, because I wanted to use the white one in the build. And I actually quite like the wood panel against the white effect. I know it's not for everyone. I love the passive ventilation around the whole system, and that single cooling fan will hopefully mean that the system isn't going to be that noisy during operation, even though it's metal all the way around. Those storage slots there for those horrible grommet and rubber covered hard drives there, it's not the end of the world, and they do reduce vibration quite significantly to their credit. But it just feels like almost a case by a committee that couldn't quite make up their mind, when I think there should have been a beefier version of this, or modify the N3 case and make that an M80X version and just widen it out a little bit. This seems, again, like a Jonsbo N2.5. And I didn't even really touch on the PSU support there. I touched on it was an SFX height up to 12.5 centimeters, but I will say that cabling inside this system suffered from the same kind of closed-in nature that we saw on the Jonsbo N2, because of the little modular design of this and the little funneling panels, resulting in, although you've got this large area here at the bottom, bring that closer up, even though you've got that large area there at the bottom, only this area is being occupied by the PSU. This area here, because of the placement and the lack of a back plane for those storage bays for the two 3.5 and two 2.5. This area needs to be utilised for cabling, needs to be utilised for funneling throughout the system for both airflow and those cables. So the result is the PSU is crammed in here at the bottom, and bear in mind there is no base level vent for that and no side level vent for that. So where that air is going and coming, you know, we're going to have to double check during the review. I feel like I'm being overtly negative, and I don't mean to be. I actually genuinely like this case, and I'm really excited to do the build for it. But I think we have to be realistic. It doesn't have the compact, small form factor of the Jonsbo N2, and it doesn't have the larger scalability and expandability of the N3. It's had its wings clipped in too many ways for me. And when we do the build on this, we're going to have to keep that in mind. But what do you guys want to see in that build? Let me know in the comments. Do you like this case? Have you got this on order? Are you considering it because the Jonsbo N2 was too small and the Jonsbo N3 was too big, and you were looking for that bowl of porridge that was just right? I'm going to hold out my full judgment until I've built this thing to see how it runs, and definitely the cooling of the system when in operation, so stay tuned for that. In the description will be more images about this. We're going to be comparing the N2, N3 and N4 for their benefits, and ultimately there's a disadvantage over one another in another video and article very soon, so stay tuned for that. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. There are links in the description to where you can get hold of this. Please use those links if you're going to go to those sites anyway. If you weren't, don't bother using them. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.